Heartbeat Orchestra. Qué sabroso mambo para guarachar, para guaracharlo. Qué sabroso mambo para guarachar. Dice. Óyelo, Bobby. Papito. Onza.
Hi, everyone. I'm Marilyn Alverio with Latinas in Power. Many of you already know me. I'm going to be a partial host today. For those of you that are just logging on, we're going to give folks just a couple of more minutes. Looks like it says 12 noon. So usually people just start logging in at 12 noon. So we're going to give them a couple minutes to get going. So I am talking to you today from beautiful downtown Austin, Texas. Many of you know I live in Connecticut. I am here for the Formula One car races. Real exciting stuff. It's my first time going to like a car race of that level. So we're here for the weekend, and just wanted to make sure that I was welcoming you, everyone today, to our today's Lunch and Learn. As many of you know, we do have a fabulous social media platform. Our Instagram is where we post, well, actually on all the social media platforms, but follow us on our Instagram because we have real fun stuff. There's always giveaways going on our Instagram, and we let you know all of the different events that are taking place. In fact, next Friday, we have another Lunch and Learn that is going to be presented by one of our sponsors, Eversource, and it's going to be a panel of Latinas in non-traditional roles. And what is all that about? And just experiencing through their eyes, you know, what that is like and what the opportunities are, especially for so many of us that are kind of transitioning in a post-COVID space to possibly new careers or new opportunities, or maybe just that side hustle that many of us have. So check us out next Friday as well. You can register through our Facebook, our website, and through our Instagram. Latinas in Power, as many of you know, our mission is twofold. One is that we provide a platform to inspire, to motivate, to encourage, and to enable Latinas to succeed, to become influential and positive leaders and advocates. And so we help them with the resources and tools on that part of their journey. The second part of Latinas in Power's mission is to spotlight Latina success stories and to bring Latinas from across the country to you to share those stories and those tools and resources with you. We believe that our learning platform has expanded, and now last year through the virtual platform, we became global. So we have Latinas coming in from all over the world to be a part of our network and to support what we are doing, as well as to connect with other Latinas. The chat room is open, so I encourage you to use it. In fact, let me go out here now and see if anybody is in our chat room now. Good afternoon, great, hi everyone. So today, you know, as I mentioned to you earlier, you know, Latinas in Power is a learning platform. We focus on 4 pillars. One of those pillars is on career development. And we try to bring in speakers from all across the industries to talk about their experience and what we need to know in terms of opportunities as it relates to your career. We focus on technology. We focus on entrepreneurship. Last fall, we had a couple of multimillionaire Latina entrepreneurs talking about their journey and sharing that information with us. And then, like today, it's on building wealth is our last pillar. We want to talk about money and to start to feel more comfortable with how is it that we can build wealth. Today's speaker, Grisel Lopez, is a financial consultant for Fidelity. Our platform today is actually presented to you by one of our sponsors, Connecticut Higher Education Trust, CHET, which is a 529 college savings plan. And they have partnered with Fidelity to bring you the topic for today, 5 Money Most. So in less than an hour, you're gonna learn about some smart decisions that you could be making with your money today. She's going to review some of the concepts about money and really understanding these concepts. And when I told people that we were going to talk about money again, people were like, yes, that's great. I need to learn more about money. So today we will share with you in the short lunch and learn in the next 40 minutes, some things that you can put into practice right away. So with that, I would like to invite today's luncheon speaker, Grisel Lopez, from Fidelity. Welcome, Grisel.
Thank you so much, Marilyn. Thank you. I'm so honored to be here. And, good morning to everyone. I'm seeing a lot of people from across the US, so that's really exciting. And today is going to be, we're going to talk about the core of the 5 money musts. And, my goal for today is really for each of you to leave with more knowledge, armed with action steps that you can implement immediately to start making smarter decisions with the money you have today while building your future. I want to take a minute to introduce myself. As Marilyn said, my name is Grisel Lopez. I am a local Connecticut financial advisor with Fidelity Investments. And I've been with Fidelity for a little bit over a year. However, I've been a financial advisor for over 22 years. And the core of what I do with clients is financial planning and answering their money questions. And so I'm sure many of you have questions about your money, what to do with it, how to make the most of it, and hopefully how to get more of it. And so, as I said, I'm hoping that today we're going to be able to answer and give you some tools you can walk away. First, I'd like to just highlight who we are as far as Fidelity. And is the presentation on, David? Thank you. So for those of you who are not familiar with Fidelity, we are a family-owned business. For nearly 70 years, we've been helping people with all aspects of their financial lives, from daily spending, investments, and planning for longer-term goals. And so the great thing is, regardless of your financial situation, we're committed to offering expertise and support that you need. And there's a slew of free resources and financial education. At the end of this seminar, I will provide those sites for you to be able to go through. Next slide, please. And so, as I mentioned, today's seminar is designed really to give you a foundation to help make those smart choices with what you have, and help build a solid foundation for the future. And it really only takes 5 simple money concepts. Next slide. Before we get into the money concepts, I just want to go through a quick exercise. If you were given $1,000, what would you do with it? For me, I'd go right to the shoes and clothes. I don't know about you, but when you start to think about your money, there's things we want to do, but are those the things that we should do? And so throughout this seminar, I want you to start thinking of your money on what are the things that you should do with it and what would help you most today, but also think about the things that may help you most in a year or possibly even 10 years. Next slide. And I believe you can go one, there you go. So today we're going to walk through the 5 money core concepts, and they're all concepts you've already heard before. There's nothing new. Budget, how to make the most of the money that you have, regardless of how much you have. Credit, how to use credit, but also boost it to your advantage. Debt, how to handle it smartly. And investing, how can investing really help you reach those future money goals? And then retirement, how to start thinking about retirement, even if it's really far away. Next slide, please. And you can go to the next slide. And so the first concept is budget, which is making the most of what you have. Next slide. And so, you know, if you think about it, has there ever been a time when at the end of the month, you're sitting and looking over your finances and you're like, where did all my money go? And were you shocked about how much you spent in a month? Or even if you were on track, but something unexpected threw off your finances. And so really the key to building a strong money foundation, the most essential piece of that is budgeting, making sure that your money is going to the right buckets is this first step to set yourself up for financial success. And the great news is you really don't need to track everything. There's actually a simple rule of thumb that can allow you to follow and keep track of what those essential and flexible spendings are. Now, before I get into what the rule of thumb is, I want to go through where the 4 common places where our money goes, right? So essential, think of that. Those are the must pays. That is housing, food, healthcare, car payments. Non-essentials, think of that as shopping, entertainment. I like to call that fun money. And then we have short-term and long-term savings. Depending on when you're going to use the money, short-term could be emergency funds, while long-term savings can be retirement savings. I want you all to kind of start thinking about where is the biggest portion of your budget going to today? Because that's going to allow you to start putting it and starting to funnel it in the correct places. Next slide, please. So that now that we know where our money is going, we can follow a simple rule of thumb. And it's nice because the name of it is the 50-15-5 rules. So think of it this way. 50% of your income should go to the essential expenses. Again, rent, mortgage, food, healthcare, those must pays. 15% should go to your retirement, 401ks, IRAs. 5% should go to short-term savings, having emergency cash on hand. And as long as you stay within these guidelines, the remaining 30% is yours. So you could buy the shoes, you could buy the clothes, or save it however you see fit. Next slide, please. So I'm going to give you an action plan or a call to action and challenge you after every single concept today, because there are things that you can actually do, begin to do it today to start putting these concepts into place. So I really wanted you to, when you go home, start thinking about how you stack up. How can you start funneling money into those right buckets? You do not need to do this all at once. Just start looking at, okay, where can I lower any of my living expenses? Where is that discretionary money going to? Am I already contributing to my retirement? It's amazing how these little steps can really add up. Next slide, please. Next slide again, sorry. And so the next slide is credit. We know how to use it, but do we really know how to use it to our advantage? Next slide. So when it comes to credit, we often hear the phrases good credit, bad credit. You know, we see it whether it's in commercials, in our own lives, or through people that are close to us. But do you really know what makes good credit or bad credit? And do you know how the impact having good or bad credit can actually affect our money choices in life? Because credit actually comes in two aspects. There's the credit that you use, like borrowing money, taking a loan, and then there's the credit you can build. That's your history or your trust, your trustworthiness. The credit you use is going to affect the credit that you build. And the credit you build impacts so many other pieces of your money. And so your credit history is just one snapshot of your financial health, and we'll get into your overall financial health. But it's an important one. I mean, think about all the things that require a credit report, such as employment, renting an apartment, getting a loan or a car loan. And luckily, you really can have a say and an impact on how healthy your credit history does look. Next slide, please. One of the biggest parts of credit history is your credit score, and it could be very confusing. So I want to take a quick second just to go through what makes up our credit score, because this is going to allow you then to make those adjustments as needed. The biggest portion of your credit score is payment history. So how are you paying back your debts? That accounts for 35% of your score. The next biggest piece is credit utilization. How are you using that credit? Are all your credit cards maxed out? Those two alone already account for 65% of your overall credit score. So you want to make sure you get those two right. Next is length of history, which that just has to build over time. The final two are credit mix. So do you just have credit cards, or do you have a combination of loans, mortgages, credit cards? And then finally is new credit. So how often are you taking advantage of those? I know for me, at the cashier, when I'm purchasing something, tells me I could get 20% off on my purchase if I open their credit card. But is that really worth the impact that may have on your credit score? So think of your credit history like a grade on a credit card. Next slide, please. Now, the best way to really manage your credit is to give yourself a regular checkup. Kind of like going to a doctor and checking on your physical health. A regular check-in on your credit is important to make sure that your finances are as healthy as possible. And there's 5 ways that you can do that. Check your credit history. Most major credit card companies, reporting companies, allow you to receive a free credit report every 12 months. And in fact, credit card companies and even your banks will give you your credit report for free. Make sure that you're checking that to make sure that everything is correct and there's nothing on there that shouldn't be. Building credit as needed. Not having any credit can be just as challenging as having credit. So again, building credit, opening new lines of credit and credit cards, taking advantage of that 20% off, but making sure that you manage it responsibly. Checking your debt load. We're going to get into this in the next slide, but you want to make sure that you're making sure that your payments are not more than 1/3 of your income. And the next one is one I'll admit I don't do too often, but it's really reading the fine print. Basically knowing what you're going to get into before you get into it. Compare credit, compare offers, understand what the introductory offer is and how long it will last. And then finally, paying on time and making sure that you're paying at least the minimum. I'm a fan of setting up automatic payments because again, this is going to have the biggest impact on your credit score. So having the payments come out automatically just makes your life easier and make sure that you're staying on time. Next slide. So action plan number 2, what are things that you can do? If you haven't already, check your financial plan. Make sure that your financial health is on target and make sure that you stay on top of that. Next slide. Debt. David, can you go to the next slide? Actually, next, perfect. Thank you. We all know debt, and this is something where a lot of people can get in trouble. And so I want to go through and talk about how we can really handle debt smartly. Next slide, please. We all are going to encounter debt at some point in our life. It could be through credit cards. You could have student loans, a mortgage. And even though it's so common, it can really feel overwhelming to manage. And so, but getting a handle on your debt and even preventing it from happening in the future really only takes a few small steps. Next slide. And when we think about handling debt, sometimes it's just the burden, but I want you to think of it in a different way. Because when it comes to avoiding debt, there's actually a surprising and necessary ingredient: savings. Remember that 50-15-5 rule. Building up that savings account, whether it be emergency or even long-term, allows us to have money on hand to pay for the services and goods that we want versus taking out debt. Next slide. There's also a way where we can look at our current situation and start to get ourselves out of debt. And I like to call this our ditch debt and start to save map. Now, each of us might be on different places on this map, but in essence, it's just taking you through the steps on how to look at debt so that you can eliminate it. First, if you don't have already, is open a savings account. Start adding money, even if it's just $25 a week, or even a month. Second, if you're not already, contribute to your 401k and contribute up to the company match. If you don't know, many employers will give you free money for retirement. And in order to take advantage of it, you have to add to your 401k. So make sure that you're doing that. Next is paying off those high interest debt like credit cards. Again, you can tackle this one at a time, but if there's one thing that impacts your debt the most, it's going to be interest rate. That's going to affect how quickly your debt grows. If you have any private student loans, paying those off. And 2 and 5 do go together, where once you start paying off some of these debts and you're having more disposable income, increase your contributions to your 401k. Bump them up, even if it's just 1%. And then finally, looking at your debt and paying off those lower interest rate loans like federal loans, mortgages. Find out what you have, what you owe, and just set up automatic payments. And again, take this as piece by piece. Don't be overwhelmed. Find out where you are on that ditch debt and save money map and go through those steps. Next slide. And you can go to thank you. So now we're going to go to a topic that is near and dear to my heart, which is investing. And it's just helping you reach your money goals. Next slide. For many people, when it comes to investing, they feel like it's complicated and it's a scary concept. And it can be, especially because on the news, we just hear about fluctuation and how you can lose your money. But I want to go through how you can set yourself up for the future by knowing the goals of your money and knowing the risk that you're taking on based on the timeline that you have. Next slide, please. The biggest thing to growing our money is compounding. So the longer the timeline that you have to have your money invested, the more compounding growth you have. And compounding is when you earn money, not just on the money you contributed, but also on the money you earned. So think of it as returns on top of returns on top of returns. And unlike savings account, there is risk. However, again, the longer you're able to keep your money invested, the higher the potential for growth. Next slide, please. Now, in order to make that money, I said you need to have an understanding of the goals or timeline of your money. Because if you're going to be using this money in a year, the investment options that are appropriate for you aren't going to be the same for how you're going to look at your 401k or your retirement assets, which have a longer time horizon. So what I want you to do is start to look at the goals and your money, what you want to do. Is there a girls' trip that you want to plan? Are you hoping to be able to purchase a home in the next 5 years? Set those goals so that you have a better understanding on the appropriate investments that you can choose. Next slide, please. Now, the next couple of slides are about the types of investments in there. And you have cash that's short term, doesn't really earn a lot of money, but you know you're going to be using that money, or that's your emergency fund. You have bonds that are on the lower side of risk, but they should be held long term simply in order for them to make money. And then you have stocks, and sometimes they're called equities. That's in the market, and that has the highest risk, but also the highest growth potential. And there's no real silver bullet here. Basically, however you're allocated, or however you're invested, you want to make sure that you're balanced and you have a little bit of everything. That's really about asset allocation. It just means having different types of investments within your portfolio. And Fidelity recommends that you have a blend of different types of investments that balance that risk and reward. Investment options, are either very conservative or very aggressive. And you don't want to be too conservative for long-term goals, nor do you want to be too aggressive for short-term goals. So a nice way to think about it with the blender here is asset allocation and diversification is you making your own allocation smoothie, right? So based on the ingredients or those investment options you're using, you're going to have a different portfolio. So for example, the more cash and bonds that you have in your blend, the less risky your portfolio is going to be. While the more stocks you have, the more riskier you're going to be. And as I said before, the key really is to diversify. And having that blend of different types of investments to have that balance of risk and reward based on your needs, your time horizons, and that's going to determine the mix that's appropriate for you. And your asset allocation is going to change over time and adjust over the course, especially as you move closer to retirement. as your risk profile changes. Most people become more conservative over time. So it's great to be able to take more advantage when you're younger and you do have the longer time horizon. Next slide, please. So everything that we've considered and we've just discussed, different types of investing and investment timeline and goals and the impact it has on our plan. I want you to start again looking at your long-term money and seeing, okay, am I diversified? Is this appropriately allocated and invested? And again, you're not alone. Fidelity is here. We will absolutely help you. And there's great resources, not only on our Fidelity website, but also online. Next slide, please. And finally, it's retire. And it's funny enough, in my 22-year career, a lot of people are really indifferent with retirement because it can be scary and it's psychological, because now you have to pay yourself and create your own paycheck. Next slide, please. And so even though retirement seems so far off, the amount of money that you're going to need to retire can feel like a lot. But if we start today, you actually don't need a lot of money, because it's actually one of the easiest ways to invest. And remember, going back to that timeline, the sooner we start, the better our potential for that growth of our money. So again, we talked about compounding returns and how they can work best when we give them a lot of time. So I want to show you two examples of Jason and Emma and their experience in saving for retirement. Now, I do want to state that everything is the same with them, except when they start. I do have to disclose, this is a hypothetical illustration. It's an example for illustrative purposes only. It doesn't represent the performance or any security, and it doesn't ensure a profit or any guarantee against loss. But this is Emma. She's 35. She's putting in $6,000 a year in her IRA. She's making 7% compounded on her account. By the time she's 70, her money has grown to $887,000. That's great. I'll take that. I think we all would. However, next slide, please. Let's take a look at Jason. Jason is 25. He's given himself 10 more years to grow his money. Everything else is the same. And at his age 70, and because of the power of compounding, he was able to grow his money more than double what Emma has. Excuse me. So I ask you, who do you want to be? Emma or Jason? I would say Jason, right? So take advantage of it. And I know we're coming on time. And so I just want to, kind of highlight that there are different IRA or retirement options. This is something you can definitely get into more with a Fidelity advisor or any advisor, or even find online. I will say, aside from your 401k, if your company does not offer either any type of employer sponsored plan, you can open your own individual account, whether it be an IRA or a Roth, that offer still a variety of investment options and allow you to compound. The biggest difference between the two, next slide, is simply how they're taxed and when you can take money out. You can go to the next slide, David. And so the biggest difference is, in a traditional IRA, your contributions are tax deferred on the front end, meaning you get a deduction. And if you were to take money prior to retirement or 59 and a half, you could be subject to a 10% penalty. While in a Roth, you don't get that tax deduction. The contributions are deposited after tax. And essentially, you can take make any withdrawals from your own contributions anytime without any penalties. But in essence, your money, even the earnings, becomes tax-free after 5 years, and once you reach 59 and a half, you can move forward. So with IRAs, I know we're coming on time. One, I would say my action steps for you, if you don't already, open an account. Make sure that you're contributing the max to take advantage of the match. And you're taking those steps to keep your future self. In closing, you can go to how the slide that says how Fidelity can help. Again, I want to impress upon you that you are not alone. We have some great resources online, as well as setting an appointment with us. The next slide will give you a website that you can go to. We also do have a app called Spire, Fidelity Spire. Again, great resources, tools, calculators that'll help you get on track. I want to thank you all for your time, and I hope that I've attained my goal for today, and that you all feel empowered to take on and implement these steps and become a master of these 5 money concepts. And I wish you all the best of luck in your financial future.
But you're not going away.
Back to Marilyn.
Yeah, but you're not going away, Kisel. This is so fantastic. I can tell you there are so many questions. Like I said, you know, like let's give some time at the end. Fantastic. This is every single time I hear this information, and I've heard it lots of times, I always pick up something else. So for example, for me, I have a very good credit score, over 800. And I took my granddaughter back to school shopping at the end of August, and we spent about $200 at Old Navy. I get to the register, they go, you want to save 20% today? And I'm like, sure, I have a great credit score, you know, I'll do that. And I always pay my bills on time. 30 points, my credit score dropped. I was like, what? And so my question, and there's a lot real quickly, is how much time does it take to recoup that once, like if you pay your bills on time, you know, like you open up a credit account. I mean, so what? I saved $40, but in the meantime, I lost 30 points. And now I just got a notice saying, like, I guess this is, what are we in October, that my credit score is going back up, but it wasn't to where it was. So what's the window there that it takes?
So I wish I could actually give you a time frame, but there isn't, because actually every single credit agency does it different. But I would say it's really how you're using it, because now they're going to look at you. So if you took that credit card and immediately paid it off, that would definitely increase your score quicker than you paying it off slowly. There you go.
But I want to cancel it now because I don't want it. And I think that also hurts you.
Yes, it does. It's just leaving it at a zero balance too. Yeah.
Right. So then it dropped your score again when you cancel them. So, you know, just pay with what you have here. Okay. Tons of questions. First of all, the word compounding, I think, is going to be the new sexy word for us, because we need to start talking about that more. I definitely want to be Jason. One of the questions that came in is, how much money was he putting in? Like, you know, how much does it take for that to get, by the time you're 71.8 million?
So that was $6,000. So IRAs do have a max limit. And so they were contributing $6,000 a year.
Which is not a lot. Okay.
Exactly.
What type of, I'm going to go on the list. There's a lot of questions. What type of account is needed to start compounding my money? How much is needed to start? So So like
You
if
can-
somebody doesn't have a 401k.
Sure. So
Or
you
have
can
that option.
actually, yeah, and it doesn't even necessarily need to be for retirement. You can open a brokerage account or a IRA brokerage account as well and start investing with as little as $25. It does not take a lot. And every little bit does count. So on fidelity.com, you can actually open a brokerage, no fees. And there's some great resources to start to invest and choose that allocation.
So a brokerage account is just like a savings account, like you can just go to,
Exactly.
yeah, Fidelity.
The only
or any-
difference,
anybody.
yep, the only difference, think of a brokerage account, that's going to hold the stocks and the bond portfolio and that asset. You'll have your savings through your bank.
Okay. What do you suggest for those who are having to financially support their elderly parents? My parents saved zero and are unable to work. And before you answer that, I've been in the financial services. I just retired from Mass Mutual. I've been in financial services all of my time, and now I'm just doing Latinas in Power. It became as my side hustle thing, and now it's what I'm going to do the rest of my life to build out this platform. But we had a term life insurance product that we were selling to young people. And we heard from one of the people that bought it. She was 32 years old. And she said, I'm buying this life insurance policy, not for me, but because I take care of my parents, they didn't save enough money. So if something happens to me, then, that helps them in their retirement. And so that's one way for young people to think about how they can protect their parents if they lose their job or anything like that. What are some other ways that people could, if there's zero money?
Yeah.
And,
so aside from insurances, that's the thing. And without knowing, just to be fair, without knowing the entire situation and other, finances or assets, it's hard to say. But if the biggest worry is what would happen to them if something happened to you, I would agree with you, Marilyn, and say explore term insurances. And even if you, for any of your beneficiaries that depend on you financially, that if something did happen to you, that is a great option. I would also advise that person, make an appointment with a Fidelity advisor. They can go through different options and do planning and give her better solutions at no cost.
And Krisa, they are asking for your email. So David, if it's okay with you.
Absolutely,
Yes, David,
absolutely.
if you can put Grisel's email in the chat for everyone. Next question is, if self-employed, what are suggestions on how to start a retirement plan? I hear this one a lot.
Yes. So under self-employed, when you're self-employed, you actually have different options that you can utilize for retirement that will give you higher limits. So there's SEP IRAs, there's solo 401ks, there's simple IRAs. And again, for the sake of the time that we have, what I would say is Google them and see which is more appropriate, because if you do have employees, you would have to also offer the plan to them. So again, SEP, it's SEP IRA, simple IRA, or solo 401ks. Those are great ways to start. And again, you can start with as little, most of them $25 to $50 a month.
Perfect. I have a 401k, and should I invest in a Roth IRA at age 42?
Can you? Yes.
Yes. I guess she's asking, should I? Is that the best option?
So one, if you have a 401k, I would advise everyone to inquire to see if your 401k has a Roth bucket. Most 401ks do offer you to assign part of your contribution to Roth, even in the plan. If you don't, you can absolutely open Roth IRA, but the IRS does have income limits as far as how much you can add. So the higher your income, the greater possibility that you cannot make any contributions, or your contributions would be again reduced. But that again is a great conversation to have with a Fidelity advisor.
Okay, is it better to pay off a student loan or put the money into your retirement savings?
So kind of going back to that 50, 15, 5, right? So one, we want to look at the interest rate, right? Because the biggest thing I say when you're looking to take assets to pay off debt, what's going to give you more bang for your buck? If you're able to capitalize more and earn more on your on investing it in a savings, not just in a savings, but investing it in a brokerage to earn and get that compound growth. And if the interest rate is low, I would say, you know, you can pay the student loan off slowly, but pay yourself first and get that growth.
Okay, last question is, let's see, it was that 30% credit utilization chart that you had on there. Just give us real briefly, that utilization, how does that work? What are the weights on that 30? That's 30% is a lot. And that's what determines your credit score. And your credit score is what determines what interest rate you're going to get for mortgage, for anything. And that, yeah. So then that's one. And then no, there's one more after that on the leaving the money on the table. So,
okay. So think of it this way. How are you using your credit? So do you get one credit card and then spend and just pay the minimum and max it out? And then all of a sudden you're opening another credit card and then maxing it out. So if you're doing that, they're going to see that, and maxing out your credits and having every single one of your credit cards maxed out is not a good look. So you want to start to bring down. And again, don't overwhelm yourself. Choose one credit card that has the highest interest, start to pay that down, then take those assets and start to pay down another one so that then it's more manageable. Okay.
And then leaving the money on the table is just the thought that I want to leave with all, because I worked in financial services. If your company is doing a 3%, a 4%, a 5% match, and you're only doing 1%, you're basically just throwing money away because they are giving you free money. So if you are only doing 1% and they're doing 3%, stop. Just go ahead, bite the bullet. It's before taxes. And that is going to, let me tell you, I'm on the other end. I'm on the retirement end. And I wish I had started, number one, early, 21, as soon as I got my first job. And number two is to always meet the match. And that's my advice to all of you.
I echo the same sentiments. It's free money.
My biggest regret.
Yeah, absolutely.
Biggest regret of what I'm
feeling. And for a lot of people, if I could just leave you with this, the first month is hard, but you know, it's taking that first step, but I promise you, as you take each next step, it's just going to become natural. And before you know it, you're not even going to miss that money. And I apologize. My landscaper just arrived. So
it's okay. We're good. We're going to wrap this up. I'd like to thank everyone. There's 45 people that stayed until the end. Please go to our Instagram at Latinas in Power and like and save and comment. When you do that, you're going to be entered into a free, we give away stuff all the time. I'll be giving away our June 2nd event is coming up in person in Hartford, but we also have the virtual platform that usually there's a fee attached to that. We do a lot of giveaways. So go ahead and do that for us today. I'd like to thank Crisel for this is fabulous information. I hope you come back and share more information with us. Let's see. Thank you. Have a blessed weekend. I'm going to go put on my Formula One gear. I got the t-shirt, I got the hat. Lewis, let's go. And somebody said, hey, we watched that on TV. I will wave to you. So thank you everyone for joining us here today.
Enjoy your weekend.
And don't forget, next Friday, we have another Lunch and Learn. Thank you everyone.
Prodigio.